Since the reinstatement of the capital punishment in California, 13 people have been executed. Robert Alton Harris, April 21, 1992. Two teenage boys were abducted by Robert Alton Harris and his brother, Daniel Marcus Harris, who was also a co-defendant. After savagely killing the boys, Robert took their car. According to the investigation, on July 5, 1978, at 10:30 a.m., Robert and Daniel drove from their home to a fast food restaurant. After arriving at the restaurant, the two guys kidnapped Michael Baker and John Majewski, two 16-year-old boys. Robert pushed the victims to drive till they arrived at a remote location while brandishing a pistol at them. Daniel Harris followed in the 1963 Ford owned by his brother. Robert shot and killed both victims in front of Daniel Harris at approximately 11:45 a.m. The Harris brothers drove both cars to their home after the killings. They took the stolen car to a nearby bank later that day. The two robbed the bank and walked away with $2,000 in cash while wearing colorful ski masks. At 2:30 p.m., the Harrises left the bank and went back to their home. The stolen car was parked in the garage by Robert Harris. The brothers were taken into custody by San Diego police officers at approximately 1:05 p.m. after they received a tip from a witness who had followed the suspect's car to the home. Robert Harris had 20 unfired 9mm bullets found by the police. He was found guilty on March 6, 1979 in San Diego County Superior Court of 2 counts of first-degree murder with exceptional circumstances and kidnapping. His brother, Daniel Marcus Harris, the co-defendant, was found guilty of kidnapping and given a 6-year prison sentence by the state. He was freed in 1983. The first execution in California in 25 years took place on April 21, 1992, when Robert Alton Harris was put to death in the gas chamber at San Quentin State Prison. Harris asked for and received 2 huge pizzas, a bucket of fried chicken, and ice cream for his final meal. He was led into the gas chamber at 6:01 a.m. He was declared dead at 6:21 a.m. after the execution order was given at 6:07 a.m. Harris's last words were, "You can be a king or a street sweeper, but everyone dances with the Grim Reaper." David Edwin Mason, August 24, 1993. In 9 months, Mason essayed, assaulted, and strangled 4 elderly victims. Mason killed his cellmate while he was being held in the county jail pending trial. He was also wanted in Butte County for killing his male lover with a gunshot wound as the victim was sleeping. I couldn't find the name of the victims, but this is what happened to them. The first victim was a female, 73 years old. She was a longtime friend of Mason's. She had hired him for odd chores, shown him around her apartment, and even shown him the panic buttons on her alarm system. Using his position of trust, Mason broke into her home on March 6, 1980, choked her when she tried to set off the alarm, stole from her, tied her up, battered, and strangled her till she passed away. Victim number 2 was a male, 75 years old. Mason robbed, battered, and strangled the victim, whom he could have known before, on August 18, 1980. Victim number 3 was a woman, 72 years old. On November 11, 1980, Mason hit the woman over the head with a crescent wrench and strangled her. She had cuts and bruises around her private areas. Victim number 4, a female victim, 75 years old. Mason essayed, battered, and strangled her on December 6, 1980. The victim's body was covered in wounds and bruises. A portion of her garments were torn off. Victim number 5, an Alameda County Jail male cellmate. On May 9, 1982, Mason beat and strangled his cellmate to death with a knotted towel, assisted by another prisoner. In an attempt to make the murder appear to be a suicide, he then hanged the victim from a hefty shower rod. Mason confessed to the crimes, but then retracted his statement, saying he only confessed because he was so depressed about his lover's murder. He was the prime suspect for that man's death as well. Mason requested permission from the court in March 1993 to replace his attorney and to stop having appeals filed on his behalf. To ascertain if he was mentally capable of making an informed decision, the court mandated a hearing. Following the judge's consideration of the testimony of psychiatrists designated by the court, Mason won. After the matter was brought back before the Alameda County Superior Court in June of 1993, Mason requested that the execution date be set for August 24, 1993, and the court granted his request. Mason was put to death in the San Quentin State Prison gas chamber on August 24, 1993. He was the first prisoner on a death sentence to voluntarily give up his federal appeal rights. The planned time of execution was 12:01 a.m. A federal court called the prison 2 minutes before midnight to make sure Mason's lawyer was there in case he wanted to halt the proceedings. Mason was led onto the chamber around 12:05 a.m. His lawyer was in the witness area, so Warden Daniel Vasquez showed up in the chamber at 12:08 a.m. and asked Mason if he had changed his mind and wanted to end the proceedings. Mason answered, "No, Warden, I want to proceed. Thank you, Warden." The deadly gas was injected into the chamber at 12:09 in the morning. At 12:23 a.m., Mason was pronounced deceased. On his final day, he spent time with his relatives. Approximately at 6 o'clock in the evening, he was led to the death watch cell. Mason was allowed to talk to his family members on the phone for as long as he wanted. While confined to the death watch cell, Mason declined any final meal and asked only for ice water. He did not have any final words. William George Bonin, February 23, 1996. Between 1979 and 1980, a total of 14 young boys were abducted, robbed, essayed, and murdered by William George Bonin, also known as the Freeway Killer. The young boys who were his co-defendants ranged in age from 17 to 21. In 1982, Bonin received a death sentence for 10 murders that occurred in Los Angeles County. He was given a second death sentence after being found guilty in Orange County of the remaining 4 killings. In addition, Bonin was suspected of killing other men whose remains were discovered in Kern, Riverside, San Diego, and San Bernardino counties at roughly the same time. He was not prosecuted for those offenses. On February 23, 1996, Bonin was put to death in the San Quentin State Prison execution chamber. He was the first prisoner in California to be executed by lethal injection. At 12:09 a.m., Warden Arthur Calderon issued the order to start the execution, and at 12:13 a.m., Bonin was declared dead. On his final day, he got to see some friends. It was almost 6 o'clock when he was led into the death watch cell. In his final dinner, he ordered 3 pints of coffee ice cream, 2 large pepperoni and sausage pizzas, and 3 six-packs of regular Coca-Cola. He gave the following last words to Warden Calderon: "That I feel the death penalty is not an answer to the problems at hand. That I feel it sends the wrong message to the youth of the country. Young people act as they see other people acting instead of as people tell them to act. And I would suggest that when a person has a thought of doing anything serious against the law, that before they did, that they should go to a quiet place and think about it seriously." Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.